Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I've got my 5 takeaway series. Be dropping this every Monday from now until the end of the NFL season, covering that week's slate. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go. So our first takeaway, Chuba Hubbard dominated. Just last week, he signed a contract extension, and now he had a huge game straight off of that. 28 carries, 153 yards, touchdown, and 4 catches, 16 yards. He did lose a fumble. He essentially took all the work after Miles Sanders left with an injury. Hubbard played essentially every snap after that injury, outside of 2 breather snaps given to Raheem Blackshear. Hubbard's strong play even made Bryce Young look okay, and Young was just okay in this game, nothing special. Now, Jonathon Brooks will play after the week 11 bye. Can't type, but isn't a threat to Hubbard's job in 2024. He was ostensibly a healthy scratch in this one, but I just don't see that Brooks, as an unproven rookie coming off an ACL tear, is going to surpass a player playing as well as Hubbard. Might happen in 2025, but it's not going to happen this year. Now, what would I do based on this news? I think now is a really good time to buy Brooks in Dynasty. This may be the lowest value Brooks ever goes to. He was supposed to come back this week. He did not. Now the Panthers going to bye week. He's gone and forgotten. Sanders is hurt, which might open up a spot for Brooks to play. But I think people are so sick of Jonathon Brooks and what has happened. Just been bad on top of bad on top of bad. So now is the opportunity to buy in. I saw some trades. You can buy him for Khalil Shakir. Now, Khalil Shakir is fine, but in Dynasty, I would much rather have Jonathon Brooks, someone who I think could make a difference at some point. Or you could buy Brooks for 25 seconds. This would be a really good move. Brooks was in a first-round pick in all, essentially, rookie drafts this year. So if you could get him for a second, I would absolutely do that. These are the types of moves you make to win in your Dynasty leagues. That is what I'm suggesting to do right now. Takeaway number 2. Christian McCaffrey returned and changed the 49ers offense completely. No workload split for CMC upon his return. 13 carries, 39 yards, and 6 catches for 68 yards with an 88% snap share. He did do most of his damage through the air, but he was out there for basically every snap. Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerendo had 1 carry each and played 3 snaps each. Neither was involved at all. Neither saw any passing game work. I think Mason's still the backup, but the handcuff situation is even less clear than previously. Either way, neither of these two are going to have any work as long as CMC is healthy. Now, the big thing that I think happened was the passing game. Because of the presence of CMC, Brock Purdy was way better in this game. 25 of 36, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 carries for 17 yards, 9.8 yards per attempt. I fully believe that the 49ers ran the ball more because they did not have CMC. CMC was not that good on the ground in this game, but through the air, we remember that one elite catch that he had. He was elite. It opens up the passing game, especially being down Brandon Ayuk. I think when they were down Ayuk and CMC, the offense was struggling, but now that CMC is back, they will be able to throw the ball. Also, Jauan Jennings was back. 7 catches, 93 yards, and 11 targets. He had a really good game. Ricky Pearsall had a good game. 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets. George Kittle, volume wasn't there, but he did have a touchdown to save his day. And then Deebo Samuel also got involved. 5 catches, 62 yards on 6 targets, 3 carries for 14 yards. The fact that Samuel saw more carries than either Mason or Guerendo shows that neither backup running back is a part of the plan. I do think Deebo Samuel will have better games. I think of the non-CMC players, I still believe that Deebo Samuel is the number 1 target of everyone else other than Christian McCaffrey. Now, what would I do here for this team? For me, it's got to be to sell George Kittle. And I love George Kittle as a talent. But when Christian McCaffrey is in, George Kittle's role completely changes. It does. He becomes more of a blocker. CMC takes his role in the passing game. This game, Kittle ran fewer routes than either Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, despite playing way more snaps than either one. In the 7 games without CMC this year, Kittle averaged 5.7 catches, 71.9 yards, and had 6 total touchdowns. Over the past 2 seasons, Kittle averages 4 catches and 57.6 yards per game with 17 total touchdowns. The touchdowns were still there, but his 2024 volume was not in line with the last 2 years. Do we think, A, George Kittle became a significantly better player at 31 years old, or B, he was succeeding because of a lot of vacated targets in the offense and stepping into those roles, and that may not continue? I heavily suggest that it's B, and we're not going to see that moving forward. Now, how do you get away from George Kittle? You might be able to sell him for Jackson Smith to Jigba and a 26-second. I mean, JSN is almost 9 years younger than Kittle. I would do this in any format outside of maybe a start 2 tight end league. Those are different animal. And then I would take a 25 first. In your regular Superflex tight end premium format, I would just take a 25 first for Kittle. You know, let's say you had Kittle and you're now 4-6. Time to move on. You got to move on. This is an opportunity. He scored a touchdown, even though the volume was not there. The volume will not be there with everyone healthy and CMC back. I would look to move on from George Kittle right now. Now, the next takeaway. The entire Bears offense was a dumpster fire. I mean, it was inept. 19-3 loss to the Patriots, and everything was bad. Caleb Williams was bad. Went 16 of 30, 120 yards, 4 yards per attempt, took 9 sacks. A disaster. No time to throw. No offensive game plan. Wasn't good regardless. The offensive line was bad. The receivers, bad. Game plan, bad. Everything was bad. So I am not impressed there. DeAndre Swift was fine, but he was just fine. This is what DeAndre Swift is. When things go wrong, you're not going to get anything out of DeAndre Swift. So, yeah, he's just okay. I've been saying sell DeAndre Swift for a while. He's not a difference maker. He's not good in bad matchups. When things go wrong, you won't be able to trust DeAndre Swift in fantasy. But he was the best offensive weapon in the game because the rest of it, Keenan Allen had 5 catches for 44 yards on 6 targets. There was some low effort play from Keenan Allen at times. Speaking of low effort, unacceptable from DJ Moore. 3 catches, 24 yards on 6 targets. And DJ Moore has looked awful. Absolutely awful all year. There's been so many problems with DJ Moore. And then Odunze, 3 catches, 23 yards on 6 targets. For some reason, he didn't play in 12 personnel in favor of a rotation of Gerald Everett and Mercedes Lewis. That definitely makes sense. So, not at all. So, Shane Waldron should be fired for this. I said offense. You could call it an offense. Offense, offense, whatever you want to call it. Shane Waldron should be fired. He's an incompetent offensive coordinator. He was laughing on the sideline. What a joke Shane Waldron is. And then Cole Kmet was not any better. 2 catches for 13 yards on 4 targets. He's one of those tight ends, a nice tight end, a nice NFL tight end. Can fill in when other options are out. But when the other options are healthy, Cole Kmet is not anything special. Much better for real life than for fantasy. Now, what do you do with this dumpster fire? There are a lot of things you could do. The one I would do actually is just get rid of DJ Moore. I've completely had it with DJ Moore. Somehow, you would think, everyone's complaining, oh, Odunze is horrible. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. Well, Moore actually has fewer receiving yards on the season than Odunze. Despite Odunze's injuries and both playing the same 9 games, that's really bad. Because Moore is already 27 years old. Turns 28 in the offseason. We're past the prime of dynasty age. We're into dynasty decline. You got to get out from DJ Moore now, because when you get to the offseason and people see 28 years old and his production this last year, you will not be able to get a return for DJ Moore. It will be too late. So now is the opportunity. I saw 2 trades. This one, I mean, if you could add a second to DJ Moore to get Rashee Rice, let's say you're not competing anymore. Rice doesn't help you this year, but that's fine. You're looking at next year. I would easily do this. Rice is worth a lot more than DJ Moore. And then maybe we're past getting a 25 first for DJ Moore. But if I could get a 26 first, I would still take it. It's time to move on from DJ Moore. You're not going to want to carry DJ Moore moving forward, especially since Odunze has looked good. And if Odunze overtakes DJ Moore, his value is only going to be lower, not higher. So I would easily take this offer to move on from DJ Moore. Even if it seems low, I'd still have to do that. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. You know what's on there. You get rankings, Discord, all that. You can sign up at patreon.com/fantasyadvice, and you can click the link in the top right corner. I appreciate everyone who signed up and any new patrons who join. With that said, I'm not going to waste any more time. We'll get into our next takeaway. So, Audric Estime led the Broncos backfield. And of course, Estime was on the cover of my stash video on Friday. So I'm very happy to take a mini victory lap on this call. I try to do that a little bit more often. People said they want a little bit more emotion and feelings in these videos. So, yes, I did say that Estime was a good stash going into the week. And he had 14 carries, 53 yards, but no targets, played 26 snaps. He did run 8 routes, which is more than Jaleel McLaughlin, but we're not ever going to see Estime as a pass catcher because that's not the type of running back he is. Javonte Williams had 1 carry for 1 yard, 2 catches for 6 yards on 17 snaps. He was the RB2 and primary pass catcher, but he lost the early down role to Estime. I don't think this was a one-off either. I think we're going to see Estime as the early down back, Williams as the kind of pass-catching change-up back, and Jaleel McLaughlin, who had 2 carries for 12 yards, which is actually decent, and no targets, completely phased out. Even Marvin Mims got involved in the backfield. Michael Burden outsnapped and ran the same 3 routes that McLaughlin did. It's 100% over for McLaughlin. I've never understood the McLaughlin obsession. So, yeah, he's done. Now, what do you do here? Well, you probably knew this was coming, right? We don't like these types of running backs who do not get involved in the passing game. As crazy as this is, Estime has 0 targets on the season. Forget a reception. 0 targets. So, since he doesn't get involved in the passing game, and he's always going to share work, I'd probably take any second for Estime. Even a 25 second will be better. But it would take a second, not a third. A second for me, and I would sell Estime. Or I would sell Estime for Trey Benson. Benson is picking his game up, and I just think the ceiling of Trey Benson could be a 3-down back at some point. Audric Estime is never going to be that. So I would still rather have Trey Benson over Audric Estime. Maybe that's something you could do. Final takeaway. TJ Hockenson is fully back. Despite a bad game from Sam Darnold and a run-heavy Vikings offense, Hockenson shined in his second game back. He had 8 catches for 72 yards on 9 targets, despite playing just a 46% snap share. He also played a 45% snap share last week, but despite the lower snap counts, Hawk is very involved in the offense. He ran a route on 30 of his 39 snaps, so he's really being used as a receiver, taking most running plays off. Imagine when he ramps up to being a full snap share player. You can trust Hockenson on a week-to-week basis because when he is out there, they are designing plays to get him the ball. Now, someone who's held on to Hockenson for this long probably won't sell him. So it's going to be tough to buy him. But what would I do? Sell low on Jordan Addison. Addison has 1 game this year with more than 3 catches. 1 game with more than 5 targets. That's not going to work. And most of that was with Hockenson out. Now Hockenson is back. It's not going to get better. Addison this year in 7 games, 21 catches, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, 33 targets, 3 catches, and 42.6 yards a game. These are not good numbers. He's not showing improvement from 2023. He's actually regressed. We know Addison had a lot of off-field issues. There were other issues. Jefferson and Hockenson are not going away. So I think now is the time to move on from Addison while people haven't realized just quite how bad it's been. You could sell Addison in a 26 second for DK Metcalf. I'd just take DK Metcalf. And then another one, you can combine Addison with Jacoby Myers for 26 first and 26 second. If you're rebuilding, this might be the kind of thing you can do. You know, sometimes you can't get the next year's picks, but you can get the following year. And I just think you're going to be a lot happier with this as you enter the offseason than you would be with a asset combination of Addison and Jacoby Myers. Now, luckily this week, there's no big NFL news. There were no huge injuries. There were a few, but nothing major enough to discuss on here. So I do have one Patreon question, and then we will wrap up the show. Now, what are some of the things you look for in breakout versus flash in the pan players? How can we tell the difference from a dynasty standpoint? I really wish there were a one-size-fits-all answer to this, but there isn't. The best thing to do is sign up for the Patreon and just ask me, and we can talk through it, discuss players like that. That's really where I discuss this type of thinking. But if you want some things, typically targets, receptions, and yards are stickier than touchdowns for wide receivers and tight ends. Running backs who are both efficient and get volume often last longer than those who only manage one of those two. Quarterbacks who don't turn over the ball often hang on to starting jobs, even if their fantasy numbers are lower than other quarterbacks who run more and turn over the ball a lot. And most of all, biggest thing, number one, players who are drafted highly, players with high draft capital, are far, far, far more likely to be true breakouts than those who are not, who are far more likely to be flashes in the pan. That would be my answer to that question. Now, if you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts on the video. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Dynasty, start sit, redraft, and more. Patreon.com/fantasy advice. Every sign up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.